So, welcome to the start of turn four. Doug still here for the Central Powers, and we starting here with the recognition that the Allied powers have reached limited war. So the VP marker went from 13, which is a slight Central Powers lead, to 12, and we then advance the turn to turn four. It's just the winter of 1915. Um, I'll show you my cards uh, so that you can see I've just drawn up. I'll make sure you can see all of my cards. So I got a couple of four different combat cards: wireless intercepts, chlorine gas, and flamethrowers. And then the one that's kind of useless, Kamal, and a German reinforcement and Austria-Hungary reinforcement, all that are very good cards. And the very powerful limited war card, Tsar Takes Command, which I'll probably use for the four ops, uh, despite the fact that that would move me along the track to Total War, which requires 11. And right now I'm at 4. So I got a little ways to go there. Um, let's do the mandatory offensive roles. Let me get that track up there. Um, as Central Powers, I roll a 5, which basically means I don't have to make one. Um, you can see that there on screen. For the Allied roll, they roll a 3, which 3, which is going to be the Brits. The Brits have to take an attack. So as you can see here in the chat, I played SAR Takes Command, which will give me 4 ops points. So let me put the screen here where you'll be able to see what's going on. I am going to try and really put big pressure on the French. I'm going to nominate for attack Sedan in the direction of Verdun. I'm going to go for it. There, movement wise, I've got a army up in Budapest, an Austrian Hungary army. I'm in Belgrade, so I've taken that, but I kind of want to eliminate the 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 Serbian army um, from what they're doing. I move there. Actually, I moved the Austrian Hungary army from Budapest to Miskowitz to strengthen the defense there against the Russians. So let's go to the attack. I play a chlorine gas to give myself a +1 DRM. I also play flamethrowers, so highly risky, but I'm going to go all out. I'm going to use both of my combat cards, and if I lose the battle, I then lose the cards, which I could use them for the rest of the turn. Um, but I'm going there for Verdun, which he will have a defensive factor of 6 factors +3 for the fort, which would be 9. And he's in a trench versus my offense, which is going to be 10 on one side and 5 on the other. Because it's a trench, there is no flanking, but I'll have the +2 DRM. So let's see how this works out. Um, so the Germans, I am on the 15 column, but against the trench, one left. So it'll be 12 to 14. The AP has 9 factors, but one right, 12 to 14. So it's kind of a heads up, 12 to 14 versus 12 to 14. Let's build a little tension here and put the Army fire table up there. Quite a range of results there: 4, 4, 5, 5, 7, 7. So it's kind of a roll off, but I have a +2 advantage on a 6-sided die. So I like my odds. Let's see what happens. I rolled a 2. Now the 2 becomes a 4. So that's going to generate 5 losses. I would have loved to have rolled a 3 because that would have put me at 5 or 6, which would have been the maximum. And it would have guaranteed myself at least a stalemate. What did the Allies roll? They roll a 6. 7 losses. That's devastating. That's going to hurt. That is going to hurt. So the Germans generate 5 losses, and the Allies generate 7 losses. And more importantly, I lose my combat cards. Not real good. So here you can see the losses taken out. Uh, yeah, that's painful. Really, really painful. Um, so there we go. Yeah, that's going to help Mark a lot. It would have been really nice to push them out of Verdun. I gave it a great effort, but as in, war games, that can happen. Um, so, ouch. But it's a long war, so we'll see what happens.
And here we are in the winter of 1915, beginning of turn 4. So as this is the winter, the Allied powers got 1 VP because of the blockade card they have in play. So every winter they get one VP, so -1 VP on the track. After the Germans' rather disastrous attack at Verdun, that gives the Allies a bit of a breathing space. The mandatory offensives for this turn are that such that the Germans do not need to make a mandatory offensive, but the British need to do an offensive. So there is only one depleted British army on the Western Front. There are some corps in the Middle East, but I'm going to bring on for my card play this turn. All I did was I brought on reinforcements. The British Fourth Army arrived here in London, and so now in a follow-on turn, I can possibly attack with these two into Calais to satisfy my mandatory British offensive. So with that, it's back to Doug for round 2.
So here we are, turn 4, action round 2 for the Central Powers. Um, Here's what I've got in my hand: Austrian Hungary reinforcements, German reinforcements, and a couple combat cards. I just lost two great combat cards that would have helped the Germans on offense due to a bad die roll. I rolled a 2 with a +2 DRM, and Mark rolled a 6. That's more to come on that later, I'm sure. Um, so here's kind of what I'm facing in France. The Germans have Calais, Ostend, Cambrai, Sedan. I've successfully placed a trench in Sedan. I have not placed a trench in Cambrai. So I think what I need to do, because I need to pay some attention to the Eastern Front, uh, is probably trench up a bit. Um, I think what we're going to do is play Kermal for 3 ops. You see it disappear there from my hand. And we will try to entrench in Cambrai as and move. Oh, I didn't have the little movement. I moved the army from Austin that's flipped into Calais to give him additional strength if I face an attack from MNs, where you can see we've got the Belgians, a flipped British army, and a French army, pretty strong forces, and then a Brit army there in London. So we will attempt to entrench in both Calais and Cambrai. So I need less than or equal to the loss factor. So in Calais, the loss factor is 3. Same thing in Cambrai. So let's see what we get. Oh, and I roll a 4 for Calais. Not going to happen. And then, so you get the -1. Now that only applies, and this is in the rules. I don't know if you guys have read this carefully. I just realized this. That only applies if on the very next turn I attempt entrenching. Um, so I think the first couple times Mark and I played that, we've just left the -1 counters on there. But when I was researching for the video, I stumbled across that. So those of you watching at home. So now for Cambrai, um, we'll see if we can entrench there. Oh, and I roll a 2. So I do get my trench there. Success. So that's great. And you can see that the trench is there. So that's the end of the turn.
And we are back with round two after the Germans are starting to dig in on the Western Front. So that's interesting. They are not pressing the offensive against the rather still outnumbered troops, I feel, on the Western Front. So I'm quite happy with that. They can take all the time they want and dig in. Quick look at my cards here. I'm going to play the Zhudenich Russian reinforcement. I'm not playing it for the event. The event is interesting. A Russian army gets placed into the Near East and becomes can go around and beat up some of the Turkish core there. But I'm not playing it just yet for that. I'm playing it for the 4 points because I'm going to satisfy the requirement of the British offensive up. So on the Western Front, we're going to have these two locations attack here. So this one here in Amiens, the British and the Belgians will cost 1 point to activate, and then a second point to activate the French, and then a third point to activate this one, leaving me with one more to move my Russian reinforcements over on the eastern front closer to the action. So let's go here with there's the attacks, and there's the move over here. The Russians are going to move in to Uzhgorod. So moving forward, 1, 2, 3, and they will be pushing into Austria-Hungary unless the Allied powers do something about this. Large number of Russian troops appearing deep in the Central Powers territory. Okay, and then on with the attack. And so attacking into Calais, there's no flanking, even though there are two stacks here attacking, because one of them is attacking across the dotted line here. This does not qualify as a flanking attack. So it's just a straight up 8, 12 or for the Allied powers, but they are attacking into marshland, so that knocks them back into swamp. The offensive is 1 to the left, so it's on the 9 to 11 column. So let's see how they do. All right, I forgot. I'm playing a combat card. In the log, I played a gas. French, the French are using gas, so they are involved in this attack. So I believe that's valid. So +1 DRM to the attack roll, and the attack roll is a 2, a big 2. So that gets bumped up to a 3 on the I think it's the 9 to 11 table, so that is 4 losses inflicted by the 5 losses inflicted. I'm sorry, let's just check the math here to make sure I did this right. 2, 5, 8 in Amiens, another 12, so that's 12 knocked back to 9 to 11, and a roll of 4, or a 2 plus 1 is a 3 rather, so that is in fact 4 losses by my calculations. What went wrong here? I'm sorry. There are no trenches yet in Calais. That's another reason why I wanted to do this attack now. So it looks like a trench, but it's a -1 DRM for in Calais for the next time the Germans actually attack. So it's on the 12 to 14 column, and is indeed 5 losses. Phew. All right, so 5 losses, and then the Germans roll a 5, devastating response from the Germans. So they have 8. They're 8, and they on the 6 to 8 table, 5 is also 5 losses. So 5 losses each. Nobody is retreating. Nobody is advancing. So the Germans will have to lose that first army and then an entire corps to satisfy the 5 losses. And then the British will have to lose similarly. The British Army, first British Army, they would be eliminated, replaced with a corps, and also that corps would be eliminated. And that's the British have now made their mandatory offensive. So that is it, and we will go back to the Central Powers for their third turn to see what's going on with Doug, and surely some point now he's going to have to wake up to the threat in the east. Well, we'll see.
Hey, turn four, CP action round three, and here's my hand um, that you can see. I think as Mark attacked my forces in Calais, I was correct in my presumption he would do that. So I still have the -1 trench attempt there. I think I will attempt to trench there. So I'll use my lowest card because that's about all I need to do right now. So we'll play the card Wireless Intercepts, a combat card for two, because I couldn't have used it as a combat card this turn. For two ops, we will move the flipped core, about the weakest possible unit on the board, down a little closer to Belgrade just to defend that spot. Um, and we'll place a move counter in Calais to do another entrenching option. There's the movement, and now a trench attempt. It's got to be less than or equal to the loss factor of 3, and I have a -1 DRM. So basically, I got to roll 1 to 4. Here we go. I roll a 5. Of course, boy, the die has definitely turned against the CP. Two failed trench attempts in a row. Not good.
And here we are, Allied Powers Action Round 3. A lull has fallen over the battlefields, so I will take advantage of this respite to play one of my stronger cards, the Italy card you see here. 5 actions, or I can play for the event to bring Italy into the war and move 2 along the general records track, moving towards is it Total War? But instead of doing that, I'm going to play it for the replacements at the bottom there. So at the end of the turn, at the end of I will be able to bring back some much needed reinforcements back onto the Western Front and in the Russian front. So it'll bring 3 British reinforcements, 3 French reinforcements, 4 strength points of Russian reinforcements, and 1 Allied. So I'm going to do that. So you'll see if you watch down on the these little guys down here, the Russian replacement here and the British replacement and the French are about to move, courtesy of the vassal module when I play the card. So the Allied points have gone to 1, British 3, French also 3, and the Russians 4. So I'll be playing those points to bring armies back onto the map at the end of this turn. And with that, it's back to the Central Powers for action round 4.
Action round 4, turn 4 for the Central Powers. Tough choices. I'm going to play the Austria Hungary reinforcements for 3 ops. Um, Sedan is activated for move. Uh, Oppen is activated for move. That's the German corps there in Germany, and then Calais is also activated for move. I have to I have to uh, try my third entrenchment attempt in a row. So that's what we're gonna do. So first, uh, we'll we'll move the flipped core in Sedan. We'll move him to Cambrai. That'll be his movement. We'll just give him a little more defense right next to Amenz because that's a critical point in my line. The German corps in Appen will move over to a city I can't pronounce, just to the north of Krakow, laying spaces, and then go into Lodz, which captures a VP. I won't bother going to Warsaw because that's a fort and I'd have to besiege it and it just doesn't work. So we'll go north there and then back 1. So really just an attempt to use the ops lay down some more supply markers. Not really that's going to do anything. The critical thing here is the entrenchment at Calais. Again, I got to beat the loss factor, which is 1 to 3. I still have the -1, and that doesn't go cumulative. It doesn't turn into a -2, even though I've unsuccessfully entrenched twice. So I got to roll 1 to 4, and I roll a 4. All right, barely just made it. So I successfully place a trench there in Calais. We'll remove the marker. You can see that oh wait, and then I think I placed the trench. Yeah, there's the trench, so we're good to go.
And the Allied powers are back for action round 4. I'm playing a 2-ops card, British Reinforcement 2-ops card, and I'm going to move the British Fourth Army from England into France, and the very strong stack of Russian armies over here is going to actually attack. So let's do the move, and there we go. The British are now in Amiens here, strong force, also entrenched. So that's the left flank there, a tough nut to crack and pretty secure. So let's go over to the major event here. I'll zoom in a little bit so we can see the action. There we go. So the Russians are attacking, and they are attacking Miskolc. The 10th Army there, accompanied by a corps. So a rather uneven battle here, and so we're looking at 9 on the army table for the Russians. No combat cards, and I roll a 3, so that gives on the army table 9, 3. That is 4 losses for the Austro Hungarians, and they battle back with a 2. So not so good for them. That is inflicting 2 losses back. So that the 4 losses will the 10th Army could be eliminated, or it could be flipped. That would absorb 2, and then the corps would be eliminated. It's really Doug's call. I think probably the best bet is to flip the army and to eliminate the corps. So that's what I did, but Doug, of course, could change that. And then the Russians have to absorb 2 losses, so one of their armies will be flipping. And so the 10th Army flips and absorbs the 2 losses. And so because it was 4 losses inflicted by the Russians against 2 inflicted by the Austro-Hungarians, because it's more than one, the Austro-Hungarian 10th Army has to retreat 2 spaces. So back he goes all the way to Vienna via Budapest, and the Russians can, if any of their non-depleted armies could, if they wished, advance. And the brave Third Army will stick its neck out there and advance into Miskolc. And so that's the end of the 4th action round, and now the Central Powers will really have to react, because now there is a hole in the lines here, and Budapest is open to attack, open to being occupied. That's one victory point, of course, but the bigger danger is that if these units down in the south here are cut off from a supply source, these units here are cut off from a supply source, then they will be eliminated at the end of the turn, and we are on action round 4 at the moment. So Russians, the Allied powers do have some time to extricate or stabilize the front, but they really need to pay attention to that. With that, it's back to Doug. And we are back. It's action round 5. The Germans, for their action round, did reinforce the Eastern Front and moved the 11th Army into Breslau. But they did not plug the gap in Budapest. tempting to race an army down here and just place all these units out of supply, which means they could not move or attack. But it's action round 5, not action round 6. There's one more to go before the end of the turn, so that would be too easy for the Germans to counter and potentially cut off the Third Army if I was to try that. Um, I do have the Serbian Second Army, so they could do a pincer movement here and potentially link up with the Third Army here. But that's if Doug does not address these two gaping holes in his line in the next action round. That's possibly a move for action round 6. But for now, played a 2-ops card, and the Third Army and the Ninth and the 10th Armies will be attacking the First Army, First Austro-Hungarian Army in the mountains of Golic. So, no combat cards, and there is, however, a 1 left shift because I'm attacking into mountains. So 3, 5, 8, that's a 6 to 8 table. Normally would actually be on the 5 table. So 5 on the army table, roll a 5. So the Russians rolling really well. So that is 4 losses to be inflicted, which is going to eliminate this army and replace it with a corps. And the Austro-Hungarians also no flanking attacks into the mountainous terrain, so that's why I did not try a flanking attack. So, but anyway, rolled really well, and then the Austro-Hungarians respond with a 4, not too bad, with a dice roll of 4 or 3 on the army table, 3 losses. So it's 4 losses versus 3, so the Austro-Hungarians will be retreating 1 space with their corps. So the army is eliminated, 1 corps is left, and he moves back, and then the Russians have to take a loss, and it has to be on the 10th Army and then a corps, because you need to maximize the losses. The Russians have to absorb 3 losses, so I can't just flip the 9th Army, for example, because that would only be 2 losses. I have to eliminate the 10th Army and then flip 1 corps. So hopefully I do that correctly. Yes, I did. There's the 10th Army's gone, and the corps is flipped, so that absorbs my 3. And then I could, if I wished, have the 9th Army, which is not depleted. I could have that advance. So I do indeed do that, because it is maintaining a solid line, a solid front line. There's no options for the Austro-Hungarians to do an end run around through the Russian lines. And that's that. Back to Doug for action round 6 to see what he's going to do on the Eastern Front.
Well, Mark continues to hammer away at the Eastern Front. He had another successful attack. So I'm going to play War in Africa for the event, which hopefully will force a hard choice for Mark to either eliminate a core or give me a victory point. It was the only card I had left in my hand, and I did not want to waste the war status that came. I'll show you there on screen. Well, let's see if you can see that. Oh, there it is. War in Africa 1. So that moved my war status up from the limited war of 5. I'm sorry, of 4 to 5. So I got to get to 11. So now we just sit back and wait to see what Mark is going to do. Um, yeah, it's going to be tricky. He's really pressuring me on the Eastern Front. Um, and I think I'm holding my own on the Western Front. So I think the next 3 or 4 turns, I'm going to have to build up my Eastern Front and try to keep him at bay while I also build up my armies back on the Western Front I've got trenches all throughout there in France. Um, so I think, yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Okay, action round six and the last card play of the round. And Doug played an event. So Doug just ignored the plight of the Austro Hungarians down on the Serbian front here and left some holes in his line. So the event caused me to choose if I want. I could remove a core or take a VP loss. I took the VP loss and kept my cores in place. And so then I played a card for 2 ops, and we're just going to do some moving. We're going to move out of Mishgolfs here and out of Valjevo here. And we're going to do that pincer movement we discussed a couple of turns ago. And so as you move the units, they occupy the spaces they are moving into, can convert them to Allied control in this case. And so now we have, as far as these units here, these Austro-Hungarian units are concerned, they have no direct line of communication to their supply sources. There is a supply source that will come into play in, I forget where it is. It's one of these neutral countries down here, Romania maybe. But currently, the supply sources are denoted by, not donated, denoted by like an Essen, for example. There's that little circle with the shaded left edge there. That is a supply source, and uh, Vienna is a supply source. Budapest is a supply source, but it's occupied. So, given that there are no so these guys are out of supply, so they can't move, can't attack. It's the end of the turn anyway, so they have no option left to move or attack. And then in the attrition phase, it's pretty brutal. They are removed, and what's more, all these terrain, these locations here, flip to Allied control. So Cluj, for example, scores me a victory point. So they are, and worse. It gets worse. It gets worse. The armies are permanently eliminated. They cannot be brought back as reinforcements. The corps go to the reserve box, but the armies themselves are completely eliminated. So off they go, out of supply, and off they go to the limited units. This one as well. I forgot to do this one in this particular log. Depression here also goes away, and then all these places here, including Depression, which is also a victory point space, fall under Allied control. So that is the end of turn 4, and then we move on to a really devastating result on the Eastern Front because the Austro-Hungarians now reduced to, well, they have one army left in the field in Vienna and a few corps facing Russian hordes. So, and that is with the eagle-eyed will amongst you will have noticed I seem to have deleted an army, a Russian army of mine by mistake on actually around 4 or 5, I think 5, but too late to fix that. So with that, we will close out this episode, and that is the end of winter 1915, and then we will be starting again shortly, spring of 1916. So that's the end of this episode, and I think the Allies all of a sudden are. It's looking really very good for them. The Western Front stabilized with the reinforcements coming through to Amiens, and the Russian front, of course, the big breakthrough there, and also probably as important, the replacement points on the track. There are multiple British, French, and Russian, and some Allied replacement points. RPs coming back. There are no central power replacement points, so that is another point in the Allied powers' favour going forward. So with that, we'll close out this episode. Thanks for watching.